I never thought life could be so cruel. You read about people losing everything, about family drama and heartache, but you never really believe it will happen to you. And yet, there I was, standing in the middle of what used to be my life, watching it crumble to dust. Losing a job is one thing, but losing your sense of purpose, your pride, and your family, it's a whole other kind of pain. It all started when the company I had worked for over 25 years, made the decision to downsize. The world was changing, and so were the needs of the business. The letter came out of nowhere, and when I opened it, I read the words, "Your position is no longer required." It felt like a slap across my face. I thought I had been doing everything right. I was loyal. I worked hard. I had helped build the company from the ground up, climbing the corporate ladder through years of sacrifice, long hours, and missed milestones. I had invested my entire life into my career, and yet, in a single moment, it was all gone. I never thought I'd be in this position. At my age, people are supposed to retire with dignity, not be forced to start over. I had always considered myself strong, resilient, someone who could weather any storm. But now, standing in front of the door marked human resources, I felt completely empty. The world had shifted beneath me, and I was just trying to keep my balance. I came home that evening with the letter in my hand, my heart pounding in my chest, but the hardest part was yet to come. As I stepped through the front door, I could already feel the shift in the air. Something was wrong. The house, which had always been warm and full of life, felt cold and distant. There was a strange tension hanging over everything. Evan, my oldest, was sitting on the couch. He looked up at me when I entered but didn't say anything. I could tell something was off. His expression was distant, almost detached. Normally, he would have greeted me with a smile, a hug, something. But tonight, he simply stared, his eyes colder than I had ever seen them. Lily, my younger daughter, was in her room, studying. I knew she'd noticed something was wrong when she heard the silence between us, but she was too young to fully understand what was going on. She had always been the sensitive one, the empathetic one. I feared for her the most. "Mom?" Evan's voice was tight, as if he was holding something back. It was the first time in years I had heard him sound unsure, vulnerable even. His eyes flicked to the letter in my hand, and I could tell that he already knew. "What happened?" he asked, his voice almost sounding too casual. I tried to speak, tried to tell him what had happened, but my words felt trapped in my throat. It's strange, really. I had always prided myself on being able to handle anything, but now I was speechless. I had nothing to say to him. How could I explain the feeling of complete devastation? The fear of not knowing what was next? "I lost my job," I finally managed to say, my voice breaking under the weight of it. "They laid me off." Evan's reaction was nothing like what I had expected. Instead of offering comfort or showing concern, his face hardened. He didn't even flinch. He simply nodded. "Well, that's rough, Mom." I stood there for a moment, waiting for him to say something more. I wanted him to say, "It's okay, Mom. We'll get through this together." But those words never came. Instead, he turned his attention back to his phone, like he was waiting for the next notification to appear. It was as if he was indifferent, unaffected by what was happening. I felt the sting of his words and actions, hit harder than any rejection I had ever faced in my career. How could he be so cold? Had I not done everything for him? I had given up my time, my energy, and my love for this family. I had worked long hours, missed countless school events, and even had to cancel vacations to ensure we were financially secure. How could he act this way, after everything I had done for him? Lily came down the stairs a few minutes later. looking around the room, sensing the change. She always had a way of reading the air in the house. She could tell something was wrong, and I didn't want her to have to deal with it. She was still so young, still full of hope and dreams that hadn't been tainted by the harsh realities of the world. Double quotes, Mom. Are you okay? Lily asked, her big brown eyes filled with concern. She was so much like me when I was her age, innocent, trusting and unaware of how cruel life could be. I wished I could protect her from it forever. I wanted to tell her everything would be fine, that I was just fine. But the words caught in my throat. It felt like every emotion I had been holding inside was coming out all at once, and I couldn't contain it anymore. Instead of answering her, I simply hugged her tight, burying my face in her hair as the tears started to fall. I'm going to fix this, sweetie, I whispered, though I wasn't sure if I believed it myself. I'll find another job. I promise. But deep down, I knew it wasn't going to be that easy. The reality of being nearly 50 years old, with limited experience in fields outside of what I had been doing for years, was daunting. And even if I did manage to find another job, how long would it take? How long could we survive without my income? The next few days were a blur of applications, interviews, and constant rejection. I tried to stay hopeful, but with each passing day, my confidence shattered a little more. Evan and Lily didn't offer much support. Evan was distant, as if he didn't want to be associated with my failure, and Lily was too young to understand what was really happening. It felt like I was drowning, and no one was there to throw me a lifeline. It wasn't until a week later, when I thought I was starting to get a grip on things, that I saw the worst of it. Evan came home from work one evening, and without even a hint of empathy, he dropped a bombshell on me. Mom, I've been thinking, he began, his voice colder than it had been in days. Maybe it's time for you to move out. I blinked, not sure I had heard him correctly. What do you mean? I asked, my voice trembling. I mean, I think it's time for you to leave, he said matter-of-factly, his eyes hard. You're not contributing to the household. You've lost your job and now you're just taking up space. I can't keep supporting you. It's too much. The words hit me like a slap to the face. How could he say that to me? How could my son, the one I had given everything for, the one I had sacrificed my time and energy for, turn on me like this? Evan, I whispered, trying to stay calm. I'm your mother. I've been there for you. I've done everything. For you. He didn't look at me. He didn't even flinch. I'm sorry, but it's not working anymore. You need to go. Just like that, everything changed. My son, the one I had thought would be my pillar, had become a stranger. And just like that, my world came crashing down. The days that followed Evan's cold ultimatum were nothing short of a nightmare. I couldn't quite grasp what had happened. Why my son, my flesh and blood, had rejected me when I needed him most. I thought about the years I had spent raising him, the sacrifices I had made, and the love I had poured into him. Had it all meant nothing? He didn't even seem to care when I packed up my things and moved out of the house I had helped create. It was as if he had already made up his mind, and nothing I said or did could change it. In the weeks that followed, I found myself drifting through each day, feeling lost, disconnected and alone. My once bustling apartment now felt empty, a reminder of everything I had lost. The smell of fresh coffee and the sound of the TV playing in the background felt like the remnants of a life I no longer had. Each day I woke up and told myself that I needed to keep going, that I couldn't let this defeat me. But the truth was, I had no idea what was coming next. My job was gone. My family was gone. I felt like I was disappearing. I searched for work day after day, but the rejections kept coming. I wasn't getting any younger, and my skills, while honed over the years, were no longer what employers were looking for. The world had changed, and I was struggling to keep up. With every rejection, I felt more defeated. I thought about Evan, how easily he had turned his back on me. I thought about Lily, how she had looked at me with those wide, innocent eyes, hoping that everything would somehow work out. But nothing was working out. It was late one night, long after I had given up hope for the day, that the letter arrived. The envelope was thick, heavier than usual, and the typewritten address seemed familiar, though I couldn't place it right away. When I tore it open, I was surprised to see that it was from a lawyer's office. It wasn't a bill, or a rejection, or a notice of anything I had done wrong. It was an inheritance letter. I had to read it twice before the words began to sink in. Apparently, my late uncle, Daniel, whom I hadn't spoken to in years, had left me an inheritance. Daniel had been estranged from the family for as long as Nomzi. I could remember. No one knew where he went after he left home at 18. And I had lost track of him after I graduated high school. The family had moved on, but there was always a part of me that wondered what happened to him. Now I knew. The lawyer's letter explained that Uncle Daniel had left me a significant sum of money, along with a small piece of property out in the countryside. The money was enough to change my situation, to buy me some time and ease the pressure that had been mounting in my life. But it wasn't just the money that took my breath away. It was the idea that someone, even someone as distant as Daniel, had thought of me in the end. He had left me something. I wasn't invisible. I wasn't forgotten. I sat in the dim light of my apartment, holding the letter in my shaking hands. The weight of it felt like the first real hope I had felt in months. It was a lifeline, a sign that maybe, just maybe, things weren't over. But as the excitement settled, a cold, creeping feeling of guilt began to rise within me. My first instinct was to call Evan, to tell him about the inheritance, to let him know that maybe this could change everything. I imagined his voice on the other end of the line, asking me where the money was, asking if he could have a share. But then I stopped myself. What was I doing? Why would I tell him? After everything that had happened, after how easily he had cast me aside, why would I offer him anything? Did he deserve it? Did he deserve anything from me at all? For a moment, I considered keeping it to myself. I thought about how much easier life would be if I just kept the inheritance hidden, used it to pay off my bills and find a place of my own, far from Evan and the rejection. It would be mine to keep, a fresh start, free from the weight of expectations or demands. But something inside me knew that I had to confront the reality of the situation. I had to face the truth about my son, even if it hurt. So, instead of hiding the inheritance away, I made a decision. The next morning I called Evan. "Evan," I said, trying to steady my voice, "I need to talk to you. There's something important I need to share." The phone was quiet for a moment, and I could almost hear him hesitate on the other end of the line. "What is it?" he asked, his voice clipped. "I've come into some money," I said, my words stumbling over one another. "An inheritance from your great-uncle Daniel. I don't know what to do with it yet, but I wanted to let you know." There was a long pause before Evan spoke. "Inheritance? What kind of inheritance?" he asked, his voice now laced with curiosity. I explained the details of the inheritance to him, telling him about the money and the small piece of property in the countryside. But as I spoke, I felt a strange mix of emotions wash over me. There was a part of me that hoped Evan would soften, that he would recognize this as an opportunity to mend our relationship. Maybe he would see that this was my way of reaching out, of offering him a chance to reconnect. But what came next was a surprise. I see, Evan said, his tone now sharp and calculating. So when are you going to sell it? How much is it worth? Can I get my share? I blinked, not sure I had heard him correctly. What do you mean, your share? I asked, my voice trembling. I mean, it's family money, right? If you're not going to use it, I think I should get a portion. I've been struggling too, you know. I have bills to pay. My car is breaking down. I'm drowning in debt, Mom. I can't keep floating along like this. You can't expect me to do it all on my own. This could help me get back on my feet. My blood ran cold. This wasn't the son I had raised. This wasn't the person I had poured all my love and effort into. This wasn't the boy who once cried when he got a scrape on his knee, the same boy who clung to me when he was scared of the dark. This was someone else, someone driven by greed, someone who couldn't see beyond his own wants and needs. No, Evan, I said, my voice firmer. Then I felt, this inheritance is mine. It's for me. It's what's left after everything I've been through. I don't owe you anything. I don't owe anyone anything anymore. Evan's silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I could feel the anger rising, but I refused to back down. You don't understand, Mum, he said finally, his voice low and filled with resentment. You've always had everything, and I've had nothing. Now you get this windfall, and you're just going to keep it all for yourself. That's not fair. Not after everything I've done for you. Everything you've done for me. I repeated, feeling the sting of his words like a slap. Evan, you've done nothing but tear me down. I gave you everything. I supported you. I gave you opportunities. And this is how you repay me. I don't want to hear it, he snapped. I'll figure it out myself. Don't expect me to help you anymore. And just like that, the line went dead. My son, the person I had always believed in, the person I had once hoped would understand me, was gone. The phone felt heavy in my hand as I sank back into the chair, my heart pounding in my chest. I had no words. I had no defense. Just the painful realization that my own son had been using me all along. The inheritance wasn't about helping me. It was about what he could get from me. And that was all that mattered to him. What had I done wrong? What had I missed along the way? That the answer was becoming clearer with each passing moment. The more I thought about it, the more I realized some people just aren't capable of understanding love, not the way it's meant to be. The months after my conversation with Evan passed in a blur. I was no longer the same person I had been when I first lost my job. I had been transformed, not by the loss itself, but by the way it had revealed the cracks in the foundation of my family. The walls that had once stood firm, holding us together, had crumbled, and I had been left standing in the rubble. Evan's last words to me echoed in my mind, day and night. Don't expect me to help you anymore. I couldn't escape them. Each time I thought about what I had done for him over the years, the sacrifices I had made, it stung all the more. The disappointment, the betrayal, it was too much. I had given everything I had to build a life for my family. And now, it seemed like all of that had been in vain. My inheritance, which had once seemed like a glimmer of hope, had become a symbol of the fracture between us. Every time I thought about it, I felt conflicted. Part of me wanted to take that money and start over, to move far away and leave everything behind. But another part of me knew that I couldn't run from my past, no matter how much I wanted to. I couldn't run from Evan. Lily, my youngest, was the only one who still reached out to me. She didn't understand everything that had happened, but she could feel the tension in the air. She still called me every day, checked in on me, and tried to get me to come over for dinner. But even her sweet voice couldn't heal the pain I felt every time I thought about Evan. And then One day, I got a call from a lawyer. It was a firm I had never heard of before. And when I answered, the voice on the other end made my stomach twist. "Ms. Thompson, I'm calling about the inheritance you received from your late uncle, Daniel," the lawyer said. "It seems there's been an issue. We've discovered some discrepancies in the paperwork. There may be more to this inheritance than you're aware of. We need to discuss it in person." I felt my heart race. What could be wrong? Had I missed something? Was there something I didn't know? But I couldn't afford to ignore it. Not now. I agreed to meet the lawyer the next day. When I arrived at the office, the lawyer handed me a stack of papers. "Please take a look at this," he said, his voice serious. "There are some legal matters that need to be resolved, and you'll need to make some decisions. Your uncle had assets that were not included in the original documents you were sent. It's complicated." As I read through the papers, my mind struggled to keep up. Apparently, Uncle Daniel hadn't just left me money and a small piece of property. He had left me something much more valuable. There were business holdings, stocks and shares in companies I had never heard of, properties in different states, and even an overseas account. The inheritance was worth much more than I had imagined. And suddenly, it wasn't just a lifeline. It was a fortune. The weight of it all hit me like a tidal wave. I had never been someone who was interested in wealth for the sake of wealth. But now, faced with this unexpected fortune, I realized that it could change everything. I could pay off my debts, buy a house, start fresh, and maybe even help others. For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of hope. But then I thought about Evan. The last time we spoke, he had demanded his share. He had made it clear that he thought he was entitled to it. A part of me felt like I should reach out to him, offer him a piece of this new fortune. Maybe we could rebuild our relationship. But then, the other part of me, the one that had been burned by his selfishness, told me not to. I had spent years trying to be a good mother. I had sacrificed everything to make sure he had everything he needed. And this is how he had repaid me. I had made so many excuses for his behavior, told myself that maybe I had done something wrong, that I had missed something along the way. But now, I was done. I wasn't going to give in to his greed any longer. The decision I made was one of the hardest of my life. I chose to take the inheritance and use it for myself for once, to do something for me. I wasn't going to let Evan manipulate me into giving him a single cent. This was mine, and I was going to build my life on my terms, not his. The next time I saw Evan, it was a few weeks later. I had made my peace with the inheritance and decided that it was time to finally confront him. I had arranged to meet him at a cafe, a neutral space where we could talk. When he walked in, his expression was unreadable. He had always been handsome, but today, he looked older, harder. The years of tension had taken their toll on both of us. "Mom," he said, his voice cold as he sat down across from me. He didn't say much else, just stared at me, waiting for me to speak. I didn't waste any time. "I know why you're here," I said. "You want your share of the inheritance. You think I should give it to you." Evan's eyes narrowed. "It's not just about the money, Mom. I've had to struggle on my own. You don't know what it's been like for me." I let out a breath, fighting back the anger and hurt. "I don't think you understand, Evan," I said. "This inheritance, it's not about you. It's about me. It's about time I start doing something for myself. After everything you've said to me, everything you've done, I'm not giving you anything. You don't get to come to me demanding things anymore." He flinched, but I didn't stop. "You've made your choices, and I've made mine. This is my chance to live the life I deserve, without feeling guilty or indebted to anyone. Not to you, not to anyone." Evan stared at me in silence for a long moment, and for the first time, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Maybe it was regret. Maybe it was anger. I didn't know. But it didn't matter anymore. I had made my choice. You don't know what it's like, he said quietly, his voice breaking just a little. I've been trying to keep everything together. And you... Stop, I interrupted, my voice firm but not unkind. You made your choice when you told me to leave. You made your choice when you turned your back on me. Now it's my turn to make mine. We sat in silence for a long time. Neither of us knew what to say. And as I looked at him, I realized something I had been waiting for him to come back to me, to apologize, to somehow fix everything. But I was done waiting. The truth was, Evan had his life to live, and I had mine as I left that cafe. I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't just the weight of the inheritance I carried. It was the weight of letting go. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of guilt. Letting go of the hope that things could somehow be different. I had done everything I could for Evan. Now it was time to live my life for myself. It was time to build something for me. To find my own happiness. Independent of him. I couldn't change the past, but I could shape my future. And in that moment, I realized that sometimes the hardest part of love is knowing when to let go.